Everybody could rise. Bob, can you start us off?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike, has this meeting been published according to the Public Meetings Act?
Yes, Chairman, it has.
Thank you very much. Roll call of commissioners.
Mr. Delana? Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. DeWise?
Here.
Ms. Duffy? Here. Ms. Fisher? Mr. Grillo?
Here.
Councilwoman Roberts? No. Mr. Scott? Yes, Chairman Zabrowski?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have our minutes for May 9th, our last meeting, which was May 9th, 2024. Has everybody had an opportunity to take a look at those minutes? Were there any need for modification or changes to those minutes? If not, I'd take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second that motion.
Beth, can I get a roll call?
Yep. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeWise?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy? Yes. Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have our executive director's report, I mentioned.
Yeah. Give me 1 minute.
It was in there.
Oh, there it is. Oh. We were looking for the. If you don't mind, pass this on. Thank you, Chairman. Executive Director's Report for June 13, 2024. Item number 1, 2022 Audit Corrective Action Plan. The Corrective Action Plan prepared by CFO Wayne Kronowski is for discussion and approval on tonight's agenda. So Wayne will talk about it at the as part of the agenda. 2023 audit, the 2023 draft copy of audit was emailed to all commissioners via email. The resolution to accept the audit and recommendation is on tonight. Financial system, SERA's financial system setup process is ongoing. We have updated the beginning balance based on the draft audit and posted all transactions from January to May 31st. We're in process of reconciling all accounts with the bank accounts. Today's agenda bill list is produced using the new finance system. So the agenda, the bill list is a little bit different, you'll see, but all the backups are there. Item number 4, 2024 budget. The budget is on tonight's agenda for public hearing and adoption. We'll begin 2025 budget process immediately and should be ready for introduction in September or October 2024. The budget must be adopted before the start of a new fiscal year. So we're going to get back into the timely process. Brownfield Development Area, BDA. The steering committee meeting was scheduled for June 18, but just got updated that new date will be set in July. We'll send out invite to commissioner appointed on steering committee. As I understand, we have 3 members appointed. The staff from CME is trying to schedule a meeting. I wanted to make sure that we have all the new commissioners and everybody on board, and I myself need to understand exactly what the role of the SERA is. So I'm going to talk to David and before July meeting, but you will be notified those who are appointed on the committee. FTA Waterfront Transportation Improvement Grant. Federal Transportation Agency awarded a grant to SERA. There was a confusion whether what was the purpose of the grant. David provided all the documentation to FTA, and I think they are in agreement that it's a planning grant. So David, Samuel, and I had a virtual meeting with the representative of NJDOT Wednesday, June 12, 2024. basically yesterday. The discussion was positive about the possibility of qualifying and receiving a grant. Another meeting is scheduled for the week of June 24 to begin the process of completing an application. The indication is that it will be about 9 months before the onboarding process. We can start actual study once we are on board. We hope to have a process complete sooner than 9 months. But from the beginning, they've been telling us it's about 9 months process. We're going to have to meet with them bi-weekly or something.
It is bureaucratic.
Yes.
Federal money that we applied for, we got the money, but rather than shipping it to the DOT to ship to us, they shipped it to the Federal Transportation Agency, FDA, who then is overseeing giving it to the DOT. And so we have to deal with people from both agencies and the Federal Transportation Agency, FDA, who then is overseeing giving it to the DOT. And so we have to deal with people from both agencies, and it's very, very bureaucratic.
Yeah.
What it is, it's for an engineering study, planning out the connections for the roadways that connect parcels A, B, and C. And it's for studying the connectivity to the train station and to the ferry in South Amboy, and viewing the alternatives for bikeways and for other pedestrian walkway connections. The reason the study is so comprehensive is because the soils that we have to put this road on, there's 40 foot of muck there. Okay, so we have to figure out how to go through and support it. Okay, and then how to connect it with 35. In 35, we're going to either have to go under it near the bridge or over it a little further away from the bridge with an overpass that swings down. This has all been contemplated originally by us when we wound up going through and viewed the redevelopment area, but it's never gone beyond that point. So what has to happen is if we're going to go through and want to see parcel B developed, we have to go through and make sure that we have suitable roadways to go through and support. That's what the grant is.
I think if everybody's familiar with that piece of property right now, it's certainly not landlocked, but the problem is there's only one entrance, one exit. So the viability of that property really depends on this roadway.
And it makes it more complex because of the fact we have to build a road under the parkway and under the Route 9 bridge. And we have to get it between the supports for those bridge and make sure that we don't affect the bridge. So it's complex. Fortunately, I have a geotechnical engineer for me that works for me that designed the foundations for the Driscoll Bridge. We know how it's footed. Okay, so we know that we don't have to go through and worry about them settling, but it's really a very complex study that has to be done.
Thank you, David. Commissioner, that concludes my report.
David or Justin, for the benefit of the new or commissioners, can you just in a nutshell describe the brownfield development area, what that is and why we have to have those meetings?
Way back when we were put the national lead site in a redevelopment area, we found out that the only way we could get grant money is by putting it into a brownfield development area. And the brownfield development area that we put it in included, and it had to include 3 separate properties. Okay, so we included the 3 pieces of national lead, parcels A, B, and C, but that wasn't good enough because that was owned by one owner. So we then have to go through, and at the end of Horseshoe Road, there were additional sites that were just cleaned up by the EPA, the Superfund site down there, and we included that into the brownfield development area. And that is now a potential site that we can use for development, okay, because of the fact the borough has foreclosed on the tax lien on it. So it's everything's kind of falling in place. The project is moving forward, but one of the keys with brownfield development area is that you have to go through and meet their requirements, of which we have, and we received the monies for the initial part of the cleanup. I guess we got $20 million in a grant, and then we had an agreement with the developer to use more money, and in return, he goes through and gets some tax savings later on, sales tax. But it's complex. There's oversight. We have to be named, my environmental division has to be named as the oversight engineer for the project, because we have to write reports to the state and everything else. And they have to have an LSRP. And as you know, the site was very dirty. They spent already $120 million cleaning up, not including what the EPA spent on the other side. But now the state continues to monitor the BDA areas because they want to see it go into redevelopment and go vertical.
And the reason for these meetings are
The reason for the meetings is to comply with the standards, which means providing reports, having a certain amount of people on the committee, okay, that are associated
Dave,
with SERA.
just got to notice your microphone is not on.
Oh,
Sorry.
Can you start from the beginning? Okay. Where should I start?
just continue.
All right. The issue is that they want to go through and see not just the professionals there. They want to go through and see 3 representatives from this agency, because the agency is given the responsibility of overseeing that BDA area. So that's why there's 3 individuals that are appointed. Sometimes we'd have 2 there, sometimes we'd have 3. Sometimes we counted Joe in, sometimes we didn't count Joe in. It was a function, but we need 3 people there so they can make a motion, and they can have a second and go from there. Then after the motion is made, then the other people that are involved with the project can go through and vote on it.
It's mainly handled by the Riverton folks.
Their environmental manager is the one that is assigned it. When it first started out, we handled it because the first developer didn't have that ideal environmental person to go through and represent it. But Mike Singer, who is from Green Lights Development Company, is the environmental consultant that's in charge of overseeing it for Riverton. So since he gets all of the data, we let him run with the report, but we have to be there as a part of our responsibility for SERA as the oversight engineer. And we need to go through and make sure that Mike Baker is there because he has to make sure from a legal standpoint that everything's appropriate that's being done.
He's one who runs those BDA meetings.
BDA meeting, that's right.
Thank you, David. Just one last thing on your report, Himanshu. Just a very simple explanation of the financial system that you put in, so that everyone knows that we're kind of moving and advancing in the type of system so that it obviously has checks and balances, and it goes beyond just an Excel spreadsheet.
Right, it's beyond Excel spreadsheet, it's beyond just basically quicken, it is designed for government financial operation where and we're going to take advantage of everything. There is a whole escrow module in it that we're going to activate that. There is we're required to encumber funds. So that's a process is going to be established now, rather than just paying bills based on the checks. It's not, we can create all those things. So it's fully integrated system. It updates the financial statements on a regular basis, and we'll be producing those and distributing along with every meeting. You'll see the balance sheets, the budget report showing the amount budgeted and amount spent. And so it's very comprehensive system. Obviously, it is not just that simple as you open up a Quicken and enter the stuff anymore. So it requires certain checks and balance, and it's automatically will check the balance. It will make sure that we have funds available to spend. It's not just gonna, you write a check and then you realize, oh my God, we overspent. It is pretty much the type of system that most government agency, different systems that most government agency use. The borough uses one, we're using different one. And this system was in place for many years in Borough Hall, so.
And who are the individuals that are responsible for the checks and balances? The checks that are being written, who oversees it, who signs for them?
The CFO is primarily, and as executive director, I am responsible. So we're both are responsible to make sure. And then ultimately, commissioners, because you'll get a report, you have a bill list that you're going to approve. We cannot spend anything other than you approve. There are system check and balances in place in the government laws on how we operate. And one of them is that's why you see this bill list here. You see the bill list that you approve. It's not automatically. And we can't just write a check outside of that. Now, we do something called manual check in between the meeting, but it still gets reported and you approve that. So that's another check balance. And then ultimate check balance, and we have auditor here. If you would like to add, the audit report will check whether we have all the documentation is placed, the system it's reported that we spend. They look at the checks, they have a spot checking of certain things. Andy, you want to elaborate anything on that check and balance issue?
I think you, hit it right on the head, Himanshu. It's really.
Good evening. Like Himanshu said, we do a spot check. We don't do 100% of your activity. We do a random test of vouchers. We do a random test of checks writings. So it's really hit or miss. If we come across something that doesn't make sense, then we expand our testing. But it's just really, it's not 100% absolute that you would find anything because it's only a test sample.
But bottom line is that there are check and balances from CFO perspective. He's licensed, he's a licensed CFO, I'm licensed CFO. So we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure the records are accurately reflected.
Correct.
And all checks require two signatures.
Yes.
Any other questions of the executive director for his report? We'll move on. I don't think,
Mr. Chairman, just one clarification on the BDA. The BDA meeting is purely a technical meeting, okay? It's not policy or anything else. That's why we originally were the ones setting them up and coordinating them. We still set them up in conjunction with Mike Singer from the environmental consultant because he has to have all of his environmental engineers there. So that's what the meeting is. There's nothing other than really talking about the technical status of the cleanup.
got it. Thank you. All right, move on to number 7, our 2024 budget public hearing and adoption. Can I get, we have to open the public hearing?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to open the public hearing for our 2024 budget?
I'll make a motion. That we open them.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
The Chairman, the budget was posted online, and a copy of the budget is included in your package. There was a summary that when we introduced budget, Wayne presented those informations are in the front, and then official documents is attached to that.
Can I ask the public, is there anyone that would like to speak on our, on the 2024 budget? Anyone that would like, from the public that would like to hear or speak or make comment on this? The third time, anybody from the public? Seeing no one, can I get a motion to close?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to move D to C, actually. Questions and comments by commissioners. Are there any questions or comments by our commissioners related to the 2024 budget?
Yes, I had mentioned that Mr. Kronowski was being paid $20,000 for the year. But we had a discussion previously that he had already received payment for, I believe, 3 months previous to that. Is that therefore the budgeted amount shouldn't be 20,000, although our executive director thinks it should be. But I feel that it's an inaccurate amount to show. Because he was already paid money. It's showing that he's being paid 20,000 for the year, but technically he's not being paid 20,000 for the year.
Correct. He's not going to get paid $20,000. It's same way I started in March, so I'm not going to get the full salary that you approve. So the budget is a plan document. It's not an absolute document. The absolute document you will see is the audit report. It will reflect what spending we took place. The budget is planned. I mean, this time, we were aware of it, but when we introduced budget, it wasn't final. And so we estimated those numbers, and then ultimately, that's the result is that was agreed upon by the commissioner. But just so that, clarify again, this is a plan document, it's not an absolute. The actual expenditure that you approve ultimately are recorded, and then audit report will provide you the final expenditure for the year. I hope that clarifies it.
Can I add something? Unlike the municipal budget, where if you have money in the budget, you have to raise taxes to pay for it. We don't raise taxes to pay for it. We have our own revenue sources. So this doesn't impact the taxpayer or anyone like it would if it were the borough's budget.
That wasn't my concern, really, but thank you. My concern was that it's stating something that's not being paid.
Well, actually, we memorialized that, I think, well, just at this moment again, but we also did that at an earlier meeting where we had discussed that and indicated that it would be prorated.
And it was supposed to be changed in the, I think Mr. Baker had sent a,
The resolution was changed to make it prorated.
right,
Correct.
right, but there was no dollar amounts. It was just said that it was prorated. There was no
It
dollar.
would be technically prorated because it's, we set up an annual salary. The annual salary then gets paid based on the starting date of the year. So if Wayne stays as a CFO until end of next March, for example, then yes, he would be getting $20,000. But through this year, he will get 9 months salary from $20,000.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments on the 2024 budget by our commissioners? If not, I'd ask for a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Bob?
Bob? Roll call. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Councilman Zabrowski?
Yes.
And I'm here also.
Oh, you're back out. To put on the record, Donna's here. Donna, would you vote for that?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Move on to authorization for payment of bills. We have both A and B. A is operating expenses total 36,094.35. Can I get a motion?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
We'll proceed. So I see that about $1,400 was billed by Mr. Baker's firm regarding the Club Pure site in May. So do we have an update on that since you've obviously had conversations? Can we get an update?
Yes, and I spent, let me see if I can get.
I just want to clarify, huh? No, you can update on the Club Pure that he requested. I just want to tell the commissioner that the bill list cover sheet, we have provided you bill list 2 ways. One by the vendor, so professional who's getting paid from different account that includes operating and escrow. And the second set is same bill list, but it's separated by the account numbers. So there will be operating expenses, then there will be escrow expenses. I just wanted to clarify that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, Commissioner, and you'll see in next month's bill that I spent a lot of time today also working on it. The business administrator and township attorney have asked that I complete a resolution for the clerk and complete the pilot agreement that they had initiated. We've sort of got a division of labor. The township attorney and BA prefer that I do that work, and we obviously bill the redeveloper for it. I believe that there were discussions in the administration that from the original pilot that SERA had recommended a year or so ago to the new pilot that the administration has negotiated, the borough is going to get an additional $1 million. And that seems to have convinced the administration that they're going to go ahead with that pilot and put it on the agenda next week's council meeting.
And will Sarah have any interaction going forward, or is this now solely with the mayor and council?
That's with the mayor and council.
And that's going to be warehouses?
No, it's a self-storage.
Self-storage, I apologize. Square footage, any idea?
It is 90,000 square feet in one building and about 9,000 in the other.
Thank you.
And just, I think we went from 8 million to the borough to 9 million, or could it be 9 million to 10 million between the negotiations on it?
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the operating expenses? Beth, do you want me to take a
Roll call?
vote on that?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
Roll call?
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yeah.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts?
Donna?
Councilwoman? Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Thank you.
And B, escrow total 28,303.95. And that is usually coming out
Out of the escrow fund.
the escrow fund. Any questions about that? Can I get a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second that motion.
Roll call?
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts? Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Thank you.
Going to move on to resolutions. We have four this evening. The first, unfortunately, is accepting the resignation of Recording Secretary Joan Kemble, which was effective of May 28, 2024. I think in the future meeting, we're going to do something for Joan and have her come to the meeting, but I do want to express our appreciation for all the work that she's done for the SERA over the many years. She'll certainly be missed, and we appreciate all those efforts. Second, we're appointing our new recording secretary, Beth, who is here today, effective June 1st, at an annual salary of $3,600. Any questions or comments related to that resolution? Good, Paul.
We had given Joan a raise, I believe, in the beginning of the year. We raised her monthly stipend, whatever you want to call it. This new one is well over what Joan was getting paid, number one. And number two, I don't recall any discussion about a salary, and especially an increase for that position. And the same thing for C is that there had been presented by the director that he felt the need for an additional finance person at the last meeting. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, somebody's hired and they're in place. So I just have to say that I understand that this board is coming from a bad place and trying to move forward. But I really feel sometimes that we're being steamrollered into things.
Let her finish.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
And I just feel that what we need to do maybe if we'd been presented with a better vision of where it was going, but it seems that the answer right now is to hire somebody, hire somebody, hire somebody, hire somebody, hire somebody. And the committee itself really has no input on it. We don't really have input on this. We're just I think it's a good idea if we have this, bing, that person's there 2 weeks later. That's my opinion, and I feel that we should have been given a little bit more input into all of this, but
I'll address B because in that case, really, we're dealing from a pool that is presented to us by the borough and really at a price point that's presented to us by the borough. So when Joan was decided that she could no longer continue to work with us, we had to work very quickly, actually, to get someone to come in. Beth is already a secretary for our planning board, and that's a huge responsibility. She very graciously told us that she would join SERA, and we greatly appreciate it. And her expertise and really her skill set will be a great asset for us. But we needed to have something in place for our next meeting. And again, so it wasn't that we could go out and advertise for that position. That's an internal thing that comes through the borough. And that price point is actually set by the borough as well, just so you know.
price point is set by the borough. Why wasn't Joan getting paid that amount?
That's for the other powers that be, not for I. As for C, well, do we need to take a resolution on, or anything on it? Okay. So for C, can I get, if we have no other discussion, I don't know, Ken, did you want to say anything?
I would just like to say I take exception to what you said from where this board was before. This board was, you may not have liked it, but there was nothing bad that went on and nothing, I was on that board for quite a number of years, and I take exception to where that board was. The board was fine. We may not agree with what happened. You may not agree with some of the resolutions and some of the approvals, but there was nothing wrong with that board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Now, can I take a motion on for a resolution appointing Beth as our new recording secretary?
So moved.
Roll call, Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dwise,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy,
Abstain.
Mr. Grillo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Chairman Zabrowski.
Yes.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to C. Is there any other additional comments or questions related to appointing our new accounting clerk?
Did she
Well, I
come from the
did-
borough also? Was she hired by is she from the borough?
No, she's not a borough employee.
She's not a borough employee.
You can,
Is
It's not a
now?
shared services. She is a employee that has an experience. We were looking for somebody to be able to handle the accounting and escrow related experience. If you recall, this position was posted. We received the resume. She was interested in it, and so we recommended her and appointed her. I think we've gone through the process on this one, and I think Commissioner were made aware of that. It was posted.
It was posted, but did you see any other applicants?
There's only one application
Only
received.
one application
Right.
and you took that.
Right.
And what are her hours and responsibilities?
She's, again, she's a part-time. She's going to be working, she's going to be working remotely. She'll be here Thursday working with Denise. And then her role is going to be evolve slowly. She's working under Wayne, working with Wayne, and her focus, we just had a couple of meetings already and distribution of work among all the staff now. And so she's going to be taking over the accounts payable, the escrow management, et cetera.
I have a question, Himanshu. So, $7,200 over 12 months is $600 per month, which is basically charity. So my question is that a fixed fee per month? Is there a not to exceed? If her role matures and grows, are we locked in at $600 per month for 12 months?
For now, that's the salary, that's all she's gonna get per month. And if we do expand role, and one of my thought, and I think I expressed to the commissioner in a discussion that, we need to have multiple people as just as a backup, as well as, getting trained to move up. Someday, same thing with executive director. Someday, there's going to be a change. Somebody else should be ready, prepared to move up. Same thing with the finance. Wayne, at one time, kind of says, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. Luckily, he didn't pull the trigger, and where he's here, then we're going to have a chance to train somebody. And that's important, because we don't want to be where what happened to us in the last 2 or 3 years, at least not under my watch. So this is my recommendation. I think we need to establish salary. These are, like you said, very small amount, a part-time position. There's no benefit afforded to person. And we're quickly bringing the agency into the future. It's supposed to be operating the way, it should operate.
And I'm a consultant myself, right? And so I understand this world of contractual structure. We don't have a personnel committee, right? We don't have a group of commissioners that, let's say an independent contractor, right, who's not a municipal employee, not a state or county employee, let's say they have a grievance and they want to take it up with SERA. There's no mechanism within the organization to address that before it gets to the full board. To Ms. Duffy's point, we don't have, let's say there were 3 qualified applicants. We don't have a personnel committee in place that could at least evaluate that. It makes sense when we're talking about a $300 contract, a $300 a month contract to hire a recording secretary. That's not the hill I'm going to die on. But if there were a more substantial contract with multiple qualified vendors, we don't have something institutionally to vet that. Would it be plausible, and perhaps to Ms. Duffy's pleasure, to create some type of personnel committee which can serve in an ad hoc role when needed?
I think it's timely because we're going to be evaluating all the new professional contract coming soon.
Correct.
It's advertised, it's posted, and everything is going to come in. So I'm open, I will work with whatever the committee you form, and we'll share all the information.
I don't want to serve on it. It was just my idea, that's all. I don't want the job.
If you're suggesting,
volunteer.
you're stepping up.
Well, I think it's worth a conversation among this board, right? Especially to your point, Himanshu, which is we're going to have a bunch of people that are trying to vie for positions within the organization. We should have a committee that can vet those before they get to the general board. I would be curious what my colleagues think.
What other positions in the near future that are we going to be concerned about filling?
Well, I couldn't say what position or what professionals changes that will come forward. I think it's a good idea to have somebody that, we meet and discuss that representing the board. I'm open for that.
And you're talking about an outside source that we would hire to take care of that?
No. It would be an ad hoc committee of.
Committee of Commissioners.
So we have the Brownfield Committee, right, that Mr. Samuel explained before. This would be actually less formal, really. It would probably just need 3 people so that you could take some sort of action to refer a vendor.
2 more with you, Steve.
With me, of course. I'll happily do it. And Paula, so I just think, I think we need to set some boundaries. As I said, I don't want to be involved in a $300 a month contract, but when it gets to things that are more substantial or potentially grievances, or to Ms. Duffy's point, well, what happens when someone says, my role is expanding, I want to come back and get an increase? I think that discussion could happen in a subcommittee before it gets to the board. And I don't see this as a particularly time-consuming thing. It's not going to happen very often, but at least there's a structure within the organization.
We can certainly do virtual meetings, discussion, so really.
So I'll make a motion to create an ad hoc personnel committee.
May I contribute to the conversation before you make a motion?
Go ahead.
I'll rescind that motion.
I think, Commissioner Grillo, you made an excellent point about the value of that assistant being charity. And I think if you look at the types of administrative positions we're talking about here, those are very small, and typically those are, I don't mean to make them less important, but because they're so part-time and they are so small, it sounds like a lot of overhead to manage something that we look at as a normal course of business. All other professionals come through the RFP process. So I'm a little confused about what positions might actually need this kind of management, which sounds like a lot of overhead that would cost more than $600 a month for that particular professional grouping that we're talking about.
I don't think Councilwoman, I don't think we're talking about incurring any cost. This would just be 3 members of the committee volunteering their time to, I think the question with the
I think the
RFP,
overhead I'm talking about is your volunteer time. Is that best spent doing this kind of oversight?
I think that's for a vote.
It's up to the individual. If they want
There
to
you go.
volunteer their time to do it, which we would be doing, then I don't think it should be a concern. It's obviously not going to cost the agency anything. And I think
If anyone else wants to do it, I would not want to be considered for that position because I don't think that that's where our time is best spent. But if someone else has the time on their hands, I guess there is going to be a motion.
Well, I think we can set a minimum. Maybe we say this is something where if the contract is less than $1,000 a month, then it's not subject to this committee.
I really don't see what the issue is if we're volunteering our time, whether they would be paid $100 a month or $100,000 a month. There still should be a process, I think, in place where the commissioners get the opportunity to see the candidates that they're going to be working with and or paying.
Well, the
That's
$100,000 has
also
the
part
RFP
of the process is dealing with professionals and with everyone else.
I think the councilwoman wanted to say something.
I think that for those $100,000 ones, we already have a process in place. That's the RFP, which we go through for professionals annually.
Well, Himanshu, let's say that we put out an RFP for legal services, right? So currently it's Hoagland Longo. We put out an RFP every year, correct? Let's say we get 3 competitive offers in July, right? How is the decision made for the final recommendation to the committee?
Well, there's a 2-step process. So when we get all the RFPs, we're going to qualify all of them. And obviously.
Who is we?
The board, you guys. Technically, you want to qualify all of them because if there is a reason, in conflict situation, you want to appoint somebody else. So that's a step 1. And that doesn't require really any work. It's just saying resolution qualifying. Selecting that certainly is prerogative of the commissioners because you're going to vote in appointment. Now, certainly that where the process you might want to consider having committee or small group of people rather than, calling professional here, all 3 for an interview in this forum will not be conducive, will not work actually. So in those instances, you can consider having a small group of committee that will evaluate and recommend to the complete board. That's where, Donna, I think that the process would work a little bit, in my view, a little bit different. I think that in many municipalities, though, or even in a redevelopment agency, executive director will bring forward, based on experience and review, the person to the commissioner, and they get appointed, although all of them, all the information will be made available. It works both ways. I believe borough, I don't believe you guys, council gets involved in selection of professionals. I don't know if the board, a planning board or zoning board has a different process. I don't know what process they establish. Some towns do have that process where there is a small group of either elected or appointed officials get together, review all the things, and ultimately select one and recommend to all the board to appoint. So it works both ways.
I have a question for Mr. Baker then. So if we were to proceed with creating a 3-person personnel committee, Does that require a change in the bylaws or any other legal documents, or this is just an ad hoc committee established at this point?
That as long as you're making a recommendation and not a decision by the agency, you
Okay.
don't need to change. Because the agency as a whole are the only persons who make it.
And if we were to introduce a vote tonight, does it then gets memorialized as a formal resolution, or is it memorialized just under the vote that we take tonight? I just want to understand procedure.
So what's the question? Do we need a written resolution or can we do this orally?
Yes,
You can do something like this orally.
that's what I assumed. Okay.
I think we have 3 volunteers. So in the effort of kind of moving things along, unless there is someone that is wants to say something vehemently against forming this, I think there's no reason not to. It would add to the transparency of the process for our commissioners and give everyone an opportunity to see how things, at least when it comes to adoption of new employees and also our professionals, how that process works.
And those 3 volunteers are?
Those 3 volunteers are Steve, Bob, and Paula.
Does it only have to be 3?
Well, otherwise, we might have a sunshine law.
You don't want to have more.
On my seat?
Well, how about an alternate?
If you don't, I mean, you
Like
know,
if I can't make a meeting or Paula can or you can we have a?
You can have an alternate.
I'll step up for the alternate then.
Right? How's that?
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we create an ad hoc personnel committee of myself, Ms. Duffy, Mr. Davis, Mr. DeWise serving as the alternate to serve, to evaluate various applications for personnel, as well as address any potential grievances that personnel may bring to SERA.
So you're proposing the personnel and professional both, right?
No,
You're gonna
wait.
evaluate,
I'm confused. Go ahead.
you're gonna evaluate the professional services when we're gonna appoint professionals.
Yes.
Okay.
But only to make a non-binding recommendation to the board.
Yes.
Oh, please turn on your mic.
When we award or go out for proposal to professionals, we prepare a document for them to present their proposal on. Okay? And so that's what we evaluate. We evaluate what's in what our requirements are, and we do, and then we evaluate the qualifications of the professionals.
So then.
We don't really, and in most, when professionals serve, and the award of professional services, the initial selection is based on their technical qualifications, not their pricing or anything like that. That's
So-
what the difference is of hiring a professional service versus hiring an employee.
Right, and so
And you're
I'm happy
correct
to,
about that, but the key thing is that rather than everyone, I mean, they're gonna make a recommendation. They're not gonna, it's not binding. They're just gonna make a recommendation based on exactly the criteria. We already are out there with professional RFP request. We started coming in. All of those RFP will be posted. Now you'll be able to access through your iPad so you can review them. But I think the idea, what Steve is saying is that the 3 of them will be involved in initial review and agree a recommendation that we'll be making to the entire board. And then that doesn't change, the entire board can question, ask, or anything. It's just that it makes process gets, comprehensive and more, So I don't think it's professionals, evaluating employees, we are very limited. It's the professional services really is where the role can be played well.
Doesn't change the rules, Ken. It just
Right.
puts a.
Let's just remember,
Subcommittee.
we're
in
going
between.
to this, and last year what we had, and I just remember, I brought it up at the meeting, if you remember, we went out for RFPs, and you had proposals that thick.
Right.
And all that would happen is say, this gentleman, this firm's fee is this, and this is where they work. That's how we were supposed to make our decision. So I said, I guess it's put into here, that we need to see these proposals prior to making an award. So whether we need a committee or not, as long as we see these proposals before the day we make
You'll be
the
able to
award.
see every proposal that came in.
Because, and Dave, you know this, too, and so do you, how much it costs to put together a proposal too and
The professional awards are not based on the rate or numbers. They're based on a number of criteria that you can select, including experience, knowledge, they have to include resume. So on the people who's going to be working with us, the company's knowledge, their references, there's a number of factor goes in. It's not purely, professional service contracts are not purely on the amount of fees.
I have a question now because I'm a little confused about where the discussion is going. I thought that RFPs were one topic, and what we were talking about was the administrative positions that are getting filled quickly to have oversight on those. So I think these are two distinct conversations. One is administrative staff to be reviewed, and the other is the professional RFPs. So are we combining the two together now? Because
Yes,
then I have a different opinion.
I think that it's a combined one committee that should be doing both, because the employee level is very small. I mean, we might not have anything until next year. We might have something next week, but our needs are going to be for those quickly. So, or certainly I would like to have that afforded to us. And then RFP review is, instead of creating another form of committee, maybe the same committee should perform that work. That's the idea. So yes, they're being combined.
With the RFP review, I don't want to be bypassed for any of the review for any of the professionals. So I want to reserve the right to have complete access to everything that this committee is having. What
Yeah,
my opinion was.
Donna, I don't think anybody said otherwise. I think at this point, because that was the same question that Ken had, and we agreed that every commissioner should have access to all that information. All this is just an opportunity for them to take some review and stock of what the RFPs are and perhaps be able to present it maybe a little more cogently to commissioners when the time comes to make those appointments.
Right. And so this has evolved quite a bit from wanting to review a part-timer administrative position to RFPs. So in my opinion, with the part-timers, if a committee wanted to go and do that and make recommendations so we can move forward, that's fine. But the RFPs, as long as every commissioner has equal standing and equal access to everything, and be able to put in their input.
Absolutely. The RFP, you will be able to see every RFP that we received. That's why that's already been created and set up, the electronic system now. And you will see when you are back and you get your laptop, you'll see that. So yes, and then ultimately the recommendation of the small committee is not binding to the entire board. The board can decide, ask question, look, and review. There's nothing changed to that for that matter.
And I think that probably the process is just simply that now that we have more electronic access, we have our laptops, as you mentioned, that the applications can now be shared more easily amongst the commissioners. So maybe some of the commissioners that did not see the posting would have seen it and maybe have access to the resumes, and that would have eliminated the problem without having a committee. I am fine. I will vote for that committee if they wish to do so. I just do not wish to be part of it.
Thank you, Donna.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
What is the purpose of the committee for the review of professional service? Forget the employees, but what's the purpose of the committee for the review of professional services? I don't understand what it is.
It would be the same as you reviewing employee. Any professional selection process, any employee selection process, professionals are basically some form, they're not employee because they're being paid differently. But they do similar, they all provide you the services that you need. Employee provide the services, one type of, engineer provides engineering service, legal provides legal service. I'm providing administration. Wayne is providing financial services. So we're all providing different services. There's no difference in between the service provider.
Who prepares?
Ken, could I
sorry.
actually, if you don't mind? I think we're all kind of in agreement that a committee that would review administrative hires is a good thing, particularly if it's going to have to be done in a short period of time. There's definitely some discussion and probably needs to have further discussion related to professionals. Would you amend your resolution? I think it'd probably be more appropriate if that ad hoc committee just has a more limited expansion of responsibility.
So I'm going to amend my motion. The new motion would be to establish a personnel committee to address only staff and administrative hires. And then I'd like to make a second motion which establishes the members of that committee.
Second,
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeWise?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts?
yes.
Mr. Scott?
No.
Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd like to make a second motion to appoint 3 members, including 1 alternate, for a period of 12 months effective tonight. That would be myself, Mr. Davis, Ms. Duffy, and Mr. DeWise as the alternate.
Steve, I think normally that's the chairman's prerogative to make those appointments.
Then I will allow you to do that if you'd like.
Steve, thank you. Bob, thank you.
I did all the
Paul,
hard work for the last half an hour. I can't make the
Okay.
appointments. Come on.
Now, I don't believe that we voted on,
We didn't vote.
right, we have to do that, okay. And there,
Right, so we are we making an appointment for the 3?
yes,
Okay.
do I have to?
Yeah. An
Like,
appointment.
we're going to make an appointment for, do I need a resolution on that?
Or,
Just appointing the 3?
no, you can just,
Okay,
that's.
so to make official for this ad hoc committee on personnel, the 3 appointments will be Bob Davis, Steve Grillo, Paula Duffy, and Rob DeWeiss will be the alternate.
We need a motion.
I do need a motion now on C, which was the original discussion, which was appointing a new accounting clerk, Sujata Salian, effective June 1st, 2024, with an annual salary of $7,200. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Roll call, Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeWise?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Abstain.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Scotts?
Yes.
Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And I just have a minor comment. There's a spelling error on 9A, which actually changes the action we're taking. It says accepting with an EX. It should say ACC. So if anybody copies and pastes into the minutes, just make sure you change the spelling. Very different meaning.
We saw it, I think we just got multiple things to do and didn't catch it, didn't correct it.
I think partly so that we were sad that Joan was moving
And
on.
you don't want to allow it. I understand that. Yes, yes.
Let him do it.
I don't think we should memorialize it that way, though.
Did we need a resolution for Joan?
Yeah, I think that it's a good idea to have Commissioner accept the resignation by resolution.
So I'll need a resolution that modifies accepting to accepting and the resignation of Recording Secretary Joan Kimball.
I'll make that.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Delana? Oh, no, he's not here. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeWise?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Thank you.
So just to be clear at this point, we've now gone through A, B, and C with resolutions, and we're moving on to D.
Before you do D, let's have auditor, there's a discussion point on, let auditor present the 2023 audit.
Yep.
And then we take the resolution accepting that, and the commissioners, just like we did at 2022, will need a certification that you have reviewed the audit, comments and recommendations. That's what you certified. You just did it for 2022 last meeting. Okay? So, I will, you want to?
Yes,
Andy?
before we discuss the resolution for the certification of the 2023 annual audit, we're asking our auditor to come up, provide some more information related to that.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I talk about the audit, I just want to go back to your 24 budget. Unlike the municipality that has to wait until November, December to do transfers, the agency can do transfers at any time throughout the year. So in the instance where one line item might have excess funds and you need it in another area at any time, or at any meeting or in any month, a transfer can be made from one line item to another line item. And then in regards to the adoption, Himanshu indicated that you would like to start in September and October, but the rule for adoption is it has to be done within 30 days of the beginning of the new year. So technically, your budget should be adopted, the 25 budget should be adopted by December 1st, which means you would usually introduce in September or in October and adopt in November. You just have to check your dates because you need 30 days in between the introduction and adoption. So if you check your October meeting date and November because of Thanksgiving and you don't have 30 days, you'll have to introduce in September or call a special meeting. So I just wanted to point that out.
That's why I said September, October. when
Right.
we have introduced.
It depends on your calendar, but it's not by the end of the year. It's within 30 days of the beginning of the new year. Tonight, we're here to present the 2023 audit. There are, once again, several recommendations. Most of them were carryovers from last year, the 22 audit. I can go over the comments and recommendations again, one by one, if the chairperson would like that. Finding number 2023-1, once again, the annual pension bill that is due to the state of New Jersey by April 1st for the year 2023 was not paid as of December 31st. I understand that it has been paid in 2024, or will be paid in 2024. But it, once again, you could be subject to interest and late charges. 2023-2, prior year outstanding checks were canceled without being approved by the commissioners. Normally, when outstanding checks go from one year to the other year, if they're eventually canceled, they should be done by board approval because the commissioners approve the bills to begin with. They should also approve the cancellation if the checks aren't cashed. 2023-3, this is a repeat, but for a different redeveloper. The anniversary date occurred in 2023 for an administrative fee. And once again, this fee was not collected as of December 31st, 2023. So we did set up as a receivable in the audit. Finding 2023-4, this is a repeat also. Once again, SERA pays professionals for the remediation of the where the SSA lands. And under that agreement with the redeveloper, they're supposed to reimburse SERA for those expenses. During 2023, SERA paid out $20,663.50, which was never reimbursed by the redeveloper. So we have that set up as a receivable as of December 31st, 2023. Finding number 23-5 is a repeat from the 22 audit. There are several escrow accounts overspent as of December 31st, 2023. The agency was not tracking sufficient balances and seeking adequate funds before releasing approved expenditures. About a week or two ago, Wayne and I got together and we went over each escrow account that SERA currently has, and we reconciled my numbers to Wayne's numbers. And I had to make one adjustment based on prior year activity. There's an adjustment in the audit for prior year missed postings. When I had done the 22 audit, there were certain bills on the bills list that were labeled as non-escrow related. So I picked them up and charged it to SERA's operating budget. When Wayne went through it, he felt that they were escrows, and he looked through all the invoices and he determined, that they were escrows. So that was one of the adjustments we had to do from the 22 to 23 year, was to get that money back into the escrow accounts, or charge the escrow accounts, I should say, not SERA's operating budget. So like Himanshu said, that SERA now has a good opening balance for the escrows. There are currently about 17 to 20 escrow accounts. And Wayne and I agreed upon all the opening balances. So, moving forward, you're in a much better place. And that was it. And page 39 summarizes the recommendations. And I'd like to thank the attorney, Mr. Baker, for getting me the money for the loan amount from the county. You deal with, don't want to badmouth Middlesex County, but it's hard to get information out of them. So, but the attorney, Michael, was able to get me finally what the balance due to the county for the loan. And I believe that's it. If there's any questions.
If I may, Chairman, I think that last audit I made, and I told you guys that you will see pretty much similar comments and recommendation for 23. And all the work that we're doing now, bringing the financial records in line, should eliminate most of these comments. For example, we have established procedure now that we do not pay professional unless there are funds in escrow accounts. So that will eliminate negative balance in escrow. SSA reimbursement is something, can be an oversight, but I think we're going to have a good control over that. So most of this thing will be eliminated. Most of these comments and recommendation should be eliminated at the end of this year, as we progress and we get the records in place. And our procedure is going to be different. So sometimes it gets hard for certain people with dealing with it looks like a little more than what we need to do, but I think having the staffing, doing that will eliminate, and we shouldn't be seeing those kind of comments and recommendations.
A question, Himanshu. When we hire a professional, they're made aware that they may not receive payment if there's no money in the escrow account?
I can certainly tell you that every professional works in a government. They're well aware of the requirement on escrow. There's nothing new. We are establishing all those process. In fact, if you look at some of this agenda, it says if funds are available. That's how it was labeled. So it is a known to all our professional that when we're dealing with escrow, funding is required, or for anything. The law requires that your finance system maintains the availability of balance, either through deposit on escrow or you approving budget where the funds are set up. Even in budget, I cannot just overspend. I had to come back to you for approval or the transfer. So there are rules in place, and they will be followed.
I think the most important part about escrow accounts is tracking them, because the problem that we have in some towns is the town wants the project to keep on going, but nobody from the town or from an agency stays on top of the developer to post the necessary escrows. So it's kind of a situation where sometimes the consultant might go through and go over because of the fact that his client, the authority or the town is saying, hey, you got to watch this guy. But the town or the authority has to go through and pursue the collection of that money from the developer.
David is absolutely right about that. And in many towns has these problems. And one of the requirement is that if the developer applicants or developers doesn't post the escrow that is needed, that you have to issue stop work order. Now, everybody gets scared with that, saying, I don't want to issue stop work order. Oh, my God. And so that's where the situation occurs. Now you go to collection. But sometimes those are problems. Because if the project is denied, he doesn't care unless he has another project in town. He's going to say, go pound salt, pardon my language, but he's going to say, I'm not paying you. And the litigation and everything is very difficult. So it is the real process established by law is that as soon as you have a deficiency in escrow, and our rules that some of the good thing has done is that we require them to have a minimum balance. That's unusual. Not many agencies have that. This agency has that. But it's now our job to make sure they comply with those
I
things.
think one of the other keys are before the agency hears the application, that the escrow account has to be paid up. Okay, so that before you, because that could happen, what you just indicated. You're about to vote on something. There's not enough escrow. You vote on it. You vote it down, and then there's no money to pay the professional.
Or withdrawn. And we have that situation. Luckily, we were able to pursue and get money. There were about 20,000 plus due from an application that the applicant decided not withdraw. But there was bills paid that were never collected. We're collecting them now.
I can add that to you. Much like it, in the redevelopment agreements, we require escrows, we require a minimum balance, and we have a paragraph that says if you don't pay, we reserve the right to stop work. And when we know the information, we have in fact in the past told the redeveloper, we're stopping work until you replenish your escrow with the agency. So it's all about knowing the status.
I think it's terrific. I think that I'm glad that you walked us through that, Himanshu, because it's important that this organization, as it continues to grow and professionalize and hopefully bring on more and more projects, that we do understand the financial standardization. So thank you for explaining that. And thank you for being so diligent in terms of the overall management oversight.
And I just want to add on to what Mr. Samuel said about the escrows. A lot of redevelopers, I have another redevelopment agency that when they ask the redeveloper to replenish the escrow account, they want to see all the bills that were paid against the original escrow money, and they scrutinize it and say, well, I'm not paying for that. Why was that charged? And that holds up, the subsequent bills. So it's a domino effect.
Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure, Donna.
In our regular agendas, we would have the list of payments from escrow accounts pending available funding in escrow. Is it something Himanshu could do is provide us an escrow report as part of our regular agenda so that rather than saying pending, we'd know if we have the escrow amounts available for those payments before we take a look at them.
Okay, so I agree. And then eventually you will be getting, as the system is completely, fully populated, you will be getting a monthly report along the bill list. There will be a report summarizing each account, including budget. The second thing is that we are not paying any escrow invoices unless we have funds in hand. Wayne verifies that repeatedly before they are added on a bill list now. And we collected several, probably $300,000, $400,000 in last 2 months.
Right, and I think what we had been doing before is voting pending that, and it seems like maybe another check in our agenda would be appropriate. And it sounds like you're on top of that, so thank you.
Correct.
believe if you look at that for the past 3 or 4 months, the past 3 or 4 months, there were no uh, vouchers listed on the agenda or now on the bill list that are pending. Okay, they don't see the bill list or the agenda if there's no money available for them yet. So that way there's no way they'll get paid by mistake or anything. It's only the system that was the GFMS system that Mr. Shah has put in place. I have to sign off on it, I have to go in and release the invoice that was posted. That's where it's pending, okay? I have to go in and release the invoice for it to appear on the bill list for the meeting. So, and I check to make sure there's funds available before I do that, obviously, so.
And in fact, if you look at the cover sheet that we provided on bill list, Wayne certifies that funds are available on all of those. So that's the process to give you assurance that we're not paying bills unless we have the funds.
Yeah, there's on the voucher form that Himanshu has instituted, both the executive director and the chief financial officer signs off on the payment before it's put, signs off on a voucher before it's placed in for payment, so.
Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions for our auditor? So we're going to move to D, which is a resolution for the certification of the 2023 annual audit. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Davis? Mr. DeWise?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We move on to a discussion now, corrective action plan 2022 audit. And we have Wayne here for that presentation.
Yes, I believe everyone received a copy of it. I can go down quickly, each item. A lot of them were repeated, unfortunately, again, in the 23 audit. But just to go over and indicate the corrective action that was taken. First item had to do with deposits. Governmental agencies are required to deposit funds within 48 hours of receipt. So now when a check is received in Borough Hall by the clerical, I receive a email usually, if not a phone call from Denise indicating to me. So I come by and pick up the check and I make the deposit. Okay. The comment about the pension bills, they were all paid in January of 24, the 22, the 23, and the 24. The due date on that is April 30th of each year. The bills are received at the very end of December or January of the new year. So that'll be easy to take care of. And that does not require a check. You have to electronically fund transfer it to the state. So that's an item that it will be done probably prior to the meeting, okay, and then shown on the bill list as, approval for payment, but that has to be paid. So that's one of the items that statutorily have to be paid. That all payments be approved by the commissioners. We already talked about some of the procedures that are in place now that ensure that all escrow receipts be properly deposited in the escrow account for each redeveloper. Like I said, they all go through me now, and they're transmitted to an individual at the bank that places it into the individual developer's account. Okay, I prepare a transmittal form and take it to the bank, the local branch, and it goes that day, if I get it there soon enough, to the administrative office and is
deposited in. And the same thing when you establish a new account for a new developer. So that all agreed upon administration fees be collected on each anniversary. We have a schedule in place now to monitor that. So that should be no problem. If someone is behind on it, we'll pick it up right away or remind them that all paid purchase orders be made available for audit. That was a problem with 22 audit. I don't believe it was a problem with the 23 audit because I was in 23, I started making a file of invoices and vouchers and label them with check numbers and dates of payment for the auditor, because I knew there was already a problem with the 22. So that's not something that was a problem in 23. That all allowable expenditures be properly submitted for reimbursement in a timely manner. I guess all of a sudden, a bill would show up from, 6 months or 8 months ago, okay, and nobody can answer why it was, why we're just receiving it now, okay? So I think that's where that came to, that all escrow accounts have sufficient funds before any expenditure. There again, the proper procedures are in place now, and we shouldn't have that problem going forward in 24. Okay, you still have that in 23. Andy had mentioned it, in his 23 audit, but you will not see that problem in 24. That's it. If anybody has any questions, that's
The important thing is that we are required to have this discussion at the open meeting. It will be reflected in the minutes, and we have to submit that to the state that this was discussed and approved by the commissioner. So I think while we don't need a resolution, Chairman, if I may ask for a vote to accept the corrective action plan.
Just so that the minutes reflect the action.
So we are taking a motion to accept
Accept the
corrective action plan.
as presented by CFO.
Great, can I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the corrective action plan.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call, Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeWise?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Grillo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Scott? Chairman Zabrowski?
Yes.
Thank you.
On to new business, new development project, executive director.
Excuse me, in the minutes, you just make sure you notate that it was for the 22 corrective action plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I just want to report new development project, and actually there were two projects that as we attended a meeting. One is at the corner of Main Street, Crossman corner. Currently, there is a construction going on for a maintenance facility for, I believe it's the NJ Transit, those small bus maintenance there. And it was originally a contaminated site. I don't have the name of the firm. They're supposed to come forward to us about an application that they have additional land in the back that they'd like to do some redevelopment. So they haven't come forward. The second one is the Red Oaks. They're on Jeremy Road. They want to do an expansion project. Again, we met, the business administrator, myself, mayor. We had a meeting with them to understand what the project is about. And they are eager to start that process soon. So you may see in July in front of us for presentation. Now, one of the process I started with that and is that then I created an application to be filed by the applicants. I think I did share that with you, with the commissioners, or I think or with the chairman and vice chairman, I believe. And that application will cover all the information that we need, and we'll share that with you, just like the RFP and other stuff. They'll be electronically made available once they submit an application to us. And then we'll start the process of appointing, obviously, professional will get involved at that point. So it looks like one definitely we'll see in July. And the second one, I don't know where they are. They haven't submitted an application. I also heard that Trammell Crow may be interested in additional kind of data center idea. So, but that's just a kind of rumor word that we heard. We haven't seen anything them coming forward. But I think the Red Oaks looks very good. It's a good project. It's a good company. They've been with us 30 years, and we certainly want to support their expansion.
That would be, from what I know about data centers, it is a fairly large project. It's a large footprint. It's minimal people, it's minimal traffic or bother to the borough, you know.
No trucks.
No trucks, yeah. And it's just a great thing, and I'm very happy to hear that.
Again, I just want to reiterate that it's not anything definitely, but there is a potential. Commissioner, if I would like you to excuse me, I have to leave 8 o'clock. I have to travel to Brooklyn to visit my son. So if you don't mind, I think we completed all business, and if I may be excused.
Thank you, Martin.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
There's no spot for our report, and Jay, I think, has a very interesting report that you're presenting.
Justin?
Yeah, just some some exciting news I think everyone would like to hear about Bass Pro Shop. I spoke with the redeveloper today, and they have awarded a concrete contract to a contractor, and they're going to begin submitting shop drawings soon, and their plan is to start work at the Bass Pro Shop on the footings and the foundations sometime fall this year. So it's very exciting. So
Groundbreaking,
we got
Justin. Need a groundbreaking. People need to see that.
I'm going to leave that to you, Himanshu. That's, but that was the big news, that Bass Pro Shop is moving forward, and now we have a date for when they'll be in the ground.
That's very good news. Thank you, Justin. David, anything to add?
I leave it up to Justin to finish the report.
Appreciate it. We're going to move on to commissioners' comments. And before I open it up, two things. First, I believe it was early this week or late last week, we accepted a letter from Joe Ambrosio, our current Assistant Executive Director, who has decided to retire. And we will be accepting that letter and moving forward from there. Secondly, we've had discussion, well, the borough itself, the planning board has been going through its master plan reexamination process. And obviously, I think SERA wants to always be able to be in lockstep with that agenda and how the master plan is progressing in order to make sure that our developments and what we're offering is in conjunction to that and collaborates with that. But also, I think it's a responsibility for us to be able to take a look to make sure that we are doing things in that manner. So one of the things I kind of mentioned to Steve as well as to Vina is the discussion of looking at our special economic development industrial zone to see if there's ways in which that may be looked at to see if we're doing all we can to have options within there, or maybe it needs to be tweaked a little bit, and also to kind of take a look at, and I know that, David, your office has done this quite often, the vacant properties that are available, particularly in those zones, to see what in fact we can do to help move that development forward, more so in a zoning aspect than anything else. So either Steve or Vina, if you can follow up on that conversation.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is really a follow-up to the discussion that we had at our last meeting. Actually goes back to January when we first heard the landfill 3 presentation. And I asked Dave a question about this one specific eco-industrial zone. That it was only for the landfill 3 site, but it offers quite a bit of benefit to potential redevelopers. And so that just stoked a conversation, as the chairman said, about how SERA can play a role in attempting to provide better and more accessible zoning in the town. So I met with Vina, I've spoken to the chair this week, and the way that I look at it in terms of what we do as SERA is we have really four core functions, right? We have the engineering part, the planning part, the financial analysis, and then the community-based economic development, right? When all of those four things work together, we have a good project. Those factors impact a project's viability. It also impacts the town, right? For all of whether we're bringing in revenue, creating jobs, avoiding traffic constraints, et cetera. But we also have a role in attracting businesses to town, right? So Himanshu is doing that, as he just explained, on a face-to-face basis. But we can make recommendations to the municipality to try to reduce barriers to entry. We don't necessarily have the ability to enact those changes, but we can certainly try to be the people that advocate for them and make the borough as attractive as possible for potential redevelopers. So what do, right? So we consider viable pilot agreements. We evaluate and prioritize and map developable properties. We assess transportation and roadway constraints as well as opportunities, and we promote areas in need of redevelopment. But we don't typically do, and I think it's something that we should do, is start reviewing zoning so that we can keep up with current economic trends. And the one that came through in this conversation about the freezer warehouses, right, is where are we as a community in terms of benefiting from the green economy, right? We know that at the federal level and the state level, there are going to be major adjustments over the next 10, 15, 25 years in terms of trying to promote green industry. And so that could be a huge part of the growth of this town's economic base going forward, right? So we think about what could that be? That could be urban farming, right? Indoor farming, hydroponic farming. It could be electric vehicle service. It could be recycling, energy recovery. We already have some of those. Solar panel construction. Who knows what it is, right? The technology is literally changing on a weekly basis, it feels like. And so thinking about that, and I spoke to Vina about the 2023 master plan reexamination, which states that the borough should, quote, prepare a land use element in zoning ordinances that reflect current conditions of the borough with a focus on industrial areas. And so what I think we should do as a group, and the chairman and I spoke about this earlier, is start thinking about how SERA, from a technical perspective, could start making recommendations to the municipality that improves the zoning and or potential financial incentives for redevelopers. It is a long conversation. It is complicated work. But I think if we do it with the lens of saying there's a lot of industries out there that may want to come to Sayreville and invest in our community, we need to make sure that our zoning matches those potential needs. That's the first step in modernizing what we do as a community. And Vina has some technical things that she'd like to talk about, and then we can certainly open it up for discussion. But that's just my kind of high level view of it. And Vina, perhaps you could explain a little more.
Yes. So, Steve, John, we have been talking about this, and I have been, ever since I've been hired, I've been looking at the zoning ordinance, I've been looking at the redevelopment plans that have been written. The landfill 3, I think, captures quite a lot of, green infrastructure and sustainability requirements. But what happens is that's one plan. I think we as the agency need to look at the overall township, like the zoning of the township. Most of the towns in the neighborhood, including Old Bridge or Manalapan, Matawan, the zoning ordinances are pretty outdated. And what we notice now is after COVID, people are more creative. There are newer technologies. For example, offices have died, right? Everybody's working from home. Drive-through facilities weren't as common, but they're becoming more common. So we have to keep up to speed with what is changing. Sometimes our zoning ordinances could be an hindrance. Like yesterday, I was reviewing Sayreville's ordinance. I was looking at the SED zone and the industrial zone. The industrial zone actually does not allow warehouses. We've created these redevelopment plan areas, but the industrial zone even doesn't contemplate it. I think as a first step, we should first create an inventory of vacant and underutilized parcels. Then we will have to look at site-specific solutions because not everything can be covered with zoning. Some can be addressed through redevelopment planning. Some can be addressed through zoning changes, making it more fluid or flexible, because the older zoning ordinances would be hyper-specific. Some of the uses were so specific. Like I remember looking at an ordinance in Old Bridge where they are so specific that you're on a commercial corridor and it would not allow an ice cream parlor. But that was because it was written based on the North American standards. Now that I've started closely looking at SERA's ordinance, there is a lot of room for improvement. We can make subtle changes so that we attract newer businesses. So one of the things I discussed with Steve is I looked at the master plan re-exam, and he's so accurate on some of the recommendations. It does talk about writing in detail redevelopment plans, but at the same time, it also recommends that we take a close look at the zoning ordinances. The one thing that came to my mind is there are many towns that have an economic development plan element of the master plan, which is tailor-made to support newer businesses to come in. It suggests like creating an overlay which allows newer users to come in. So I think we should start looking at that. Our role shouldn't be limited to a developer coming in and saying, I want to develop this site. But why not we as an agency look at the overall town? Why don't we be proactive rather than be just reactive when a redeveloper comes in? So I feel it's important for us to slowly start looking at the ordinances. I think I would love to participate in the master plan re-exam because, from the redevelopment agency's perspective, maybe we could have input to encourage newer businesses in the master plan itself, make recommendations for areas that have not been contemplated for redevelopment or have been underutilized. It could be a smaller area. It could not even meet the redevelopment criteria, and then we could look at overlay zoning to encourage newer uses. So there's a lot that can be done to encourage and attract businesses. It shouldn't be just limited to us reacting to particular sites. And I would love to work with Steve and the agency on, coming up with some innovative solutions towards it.
But we don't control the zoning
We don't.
as an agency.
We
That's
don't,
a whole different board.
Correct. We don't.
And the planning board, that's another board that would have to be,
Correct, but that
they would
doesn't
have to get on board with this whole thing.
Correct, but that doesn't stop the redevelopment agency from making recommendations. So,
And that's all we can do is make recommendations.
correct.
Right.
So, but at least we should start looking at it.
I found in my career that the planning board is a very funny misnomer. They don't usually do planning, right? It's very reactionary. Zoning boards are even more reactionary. We have an opportunity to say that we don't have any regulatory authority like a planning board or a zoning board, but we are the agency that's actually dealing with the real world developers who are coming to us and saying, I want to build, but there are constraints, right? That's the whole point of a pilot request, right? So we are literally dealing with that issue every time we meet. And so I think we are in a phenomenal position because of the work we do to make those recommendations, and whether they get accepted or not is out of our control. But secondly, I think we have a very, very strong board. We have very good professionals. We have terrifically diverse volunteers. I think the time is right to say Sayreville's Economic Redevelopment Agency is in a strong position. The town is in a strong position. And the economy is changing rapidly. And it's changing in a way that we can benefit because we do have this very specific type of land use, a lot of vacant industrial land. We have to capitalize on it. We're not going to capitalize on it with 1970 zoning. And so whether we're successful or not with these recommendations is out of our control, but I don't think we can sit back and say, well, let's not try it all.
I
And
think
you
one
know,
of
to
the point-
chime in,
One of the, because I don't want this to be a real long conversation. I think it'd be best for one of our workshops. But one of the things I have found with the reexamination of the master plan it's not as far thinking as you think. In many cases, what it is it's addressing current issues. And I saw that a lot in the reexamination report. And there are times where I think recommendations should be made to really where that agenda should lead more than simply just correcting. Don't get me wrong, we have to correct what we have. There's no question about that. But sometimes there should be some leadership to where do we want to go? And believe it or not, the master plan doesn't necessarily do that. In part, it does, but not in full. So I think there is a way for SERA to make those recommendations to kind of say, hey, listen, we're kind of collaborating everybody together so that our vision is everybody's vision, right? Because otherwise these boards, and I know they're independent, but they all kind of work differently. And it's not that vision.
And that's why I recommend that, the township should have an economic development plan element, because that solely should be the recommendations that come from the redevelopment agency, because that's where we're trying to attract businesses. That's where we are being innovative.
Donna, are you still there?
Yeah, I had to step out for a second. I'm sorry.
I'm going to kind of close the discussion, but did you want to add anything before I close that discussion and open it up to all the commissioners?
But I have a wonky connection.
Okay. So how about we'll
Sorry.
save that to the workshop then? Are there any other comments or anything, other commissioner reports we wish to bring forward this evening? I'm going to close the commissioner comments and can I exercise or have someone exercise a motion to open our meeting to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Does anybody in the public wish to speak? Does anybody in the public wish to speak? Can I get a motion to close the public portion?
Make a motion to close the public portion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mike, is there a need for a resolution for executive session?
We have nothing to discuss in executive session. David? Nope.
If that's the case, can I get a motion for adjournment? Nope, sorry. Okay. Oh, yeah, we have to look at that. I know that we have a meeting scheduled for July, but is normally, right, normally our meetings in July and August or no?
Normally meeting in July because that's when we do the professional hiring. And normally there's no meeting in August.
Okay. I do know that there will be some commissioners that may not be available for that July meeting. Perhaps there may be a discussion about, we don't like to change this meeting schedule, but it might be necessary for that.
So if you take a poll of the commissioners on alternate dates, then we just have to give the appropriate notice to the newspapers, put it on the website and the bulletin board and post it, and then we'll be okay.
Very good. Can I get that motion for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Steve, I think a good idea, but we need to